Oh, hey there. As I suspect, many people have probably gotten themselves a 3D printer, either for Black Friday, for Christmas, or really whatever holiday you celebrate at this time of the year. Now, this video is not intended to scare anybody away from getting a 3D printer. If you already have one, first of all, congratulations, welcome to the hobby. I hope it brings you a bunch of joy and usefulness in your life, but I feel like there's a couple of things that need to be discussed regarding, proper expectations for when you get a 3D printer, and also some tips for when you're starting out. So let's dive into that right now. Okay, first of all is, if you've received a 3D printer or if you're expecting to purchase one on sale this time of year, one big thing to keep in mind is research. Definitely do your research for which machine you're going to buy. If you've already received one, do some research as to potential pitfalls that you may have with it. What are some, common issues people are having? Go from there. But like anything, take what you find with a grain of salt. Obviously, there are some issues that are more user problems. Some of them are actually issues with the machine. Try and decide for yourself from there, but also don't rule out the fact that people do make mistakes. They do happen. Number two is, don't jump straight into upgrading your machine. Get to know your machine. Get to figure out what it likes. Get to figure out what it doesn't like. Figure out what potential problems you think are there that need fixing, and then go ahead and do that. I know it's very tempting when you first get the machine to want to 3D print every single accessory under the sun for the thing. I get it, I've been there, I've done that, but the reality is, most of the time, they don't really improve the performance all that much, or if they do, it's a lot of work to get them to actually do what you wanted in the first place. So just keep that in mind. That's not to say that you shouldn't upgrade your machine, and I'm not saying that certain machines might not need an upgrade very soon after you purchase them, but just use a little bit of common sense in that department. Number three is, keep your expectations realistic. When you first get your 3D printer, it's very common for it to have a calibration cube or a small test print or three on the included SD card. And generally speaking, but not always, these will turn out pretty decent and you'll be going, oh my gosh, I made a thing. Now I want to make more things. This is totally awesome. This is totally normal. I've been there, I've done that. I know the feeling. But also be realistic. When you're first starting out, you're probably going to download a slicer. Maybe there's one included on the SD card. And you're going to want to take files that you found on Thingiverse, or maybe made in Tinkercad, or made in Fusion 360, or whatever your software of choice is. And you're going to want to take those and you're going to want to produce them. Now, there's nothing wrong with downloading a gigantic helmet and pushing print on a 24-hour plus print when you first get the machine if you're feeling really confident. But at the same time, don't expect it to turn out perfectly in the beginning. I'll be perfectly honest, I've been doing 3D printing for over 5+ years now. I still have bad days. I still have days where things don't go right. It's just a part of the process. It takes time to figure out your slicer. I like to use the example when I'm talking to people of riding a bicycle or driving a stick shift car, because most people have learned to do both at some point in their life, if not one, the other. The main point being is, when you first start out doing either of those, you're going to screw up a whole heck of a lot. It's going to be very frustrating. You're going to want to give up. You're going to think people who can do this are some kind of genius, and you're just not on that level, and you're never going to hit that point. And then all of a sudden, the day's going to come where you've persevered through the frustration, and you go out and you're going to say, ride your bike. And sure, you probably fall off a couple of times going around the block to go get a candy bar, but you know what? You made it to the store. You did it in pretty much one piece, I hope. And you kind of just realize, okay, you know what? I'm going to just take a little bit of time. And before you know it, you're riding your bike around with no hands on the handlebars and riding down cliffs and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Or in the case of a stick shift, you're going to stall the engine a lot. You're going to probably make horrible sounds in the gearbox a couple of times. You're going to think it's really hard, and then there comes that day where you're just driving and all of a sudden it makes sense. You might not be super smooth at it, you might not be perfect at it, but you know what? You got through the initial hump, and then with repetition comes just getting better at it. Same thing applies with 3D printing. The more you do it, the more you learn, the more you know, the better it gets. I'll be honest, I look back at photos of some old prints that I did and go, oh my word, that is horrific. But at the same time, you know what? I was learning. I don't judge myself for it. I just look back and go, hey, that's what I used to make. This is what I make now. Cool, I learned something. That's all that matters. Big thing is just check your expectations. Don't expect perfection out of the box, but definitely strive to want to do better. Believe me, it takes time. There's nothing wrong with that. We all learn at our own pace. I know some people who are more than happy to stick with a stock slicer profile and just live with the fact that it's not going to be super efficient or super perfect. And then other people spend hours tuning and tweaking to get it perfectly what they want within their metrics. But just keep in mind that sometimes you just have to take what the machine can give because you're running at the limits, and that's the best that it can do. And last but not least is try to remember to do basic maintenance on your machine. I'm not saying that you need to go tearing apart the hot end every 2 hours of printing, nothing crazy like that. Just, maybe put a little bit of grease on the Z-axis rods, maybe wipe down the rails if they're getting a little bit covered in junk, double check that nothing is overly loose or overly tight, maybe double check your electrical connections are actually tight, they can work themselves loose. You got to remember these print heads and printers are vibrating a lot, and things will work themselves loose in a mechanical application like that. So if you notice something getting loose, better to preemptively deal with it and have a giant print wad itself up around your hot end, and then you got to spend some time fixing it, tearing it apart, and dealing with all of that. Believe me, 5 minutes spent in a pre-print check will save you 5 hours of grief online and ordering parts and waiting for them and fixing the machine. Just take my word for it. A little bit of work save you a lot of heartache. It's like with a car. Basic maintenance saves you thousands of dollars down the road. A $35 oil change every, say, 5,000 miles, depending upon your vehicle, will save you thousands of dollars in a seized engine. Just take my word for it. I've heard some stories. You don't want to go there. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little video. I really hope that if you are new to 3D printing that you found this very useful. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to go to the company's Facebook page or their forum or things like that. Definitely try and do your research to figure out a solution to your problem early on. Generally it's something simple, but if you're really stumped by something, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here to help you. I know there's some crappy people out there, but a lot of us truly want to help. And if you give us the time and you give us a little patience, we'll do what we can to help you. If there's a local club or a makerspace nearby, totally go out and try and learn what you can. There's only so much you can do online, but having somebody there to show you in person really makes all the difference in the world. And if anything, if you're somebody who knows 3D printing, maybe post up saying, hey, if anybody wants to hang out and get coffee or something like that, come along and I'll answer your 3D printing questions. It's a great way to introduce people to the hobby, maybe allow people to decide if they really want to get into 3D printing, if it's for them or not. I know some people in the design program who are more than happy to pay me to do prints for them, but they don't feel like they've got the time or the willpower to try doing printing on their own, which I completely respect. I completely understand their time is very limited, and it's easier for them to pay somebody to do the work for them than to have to try and figure it out themselves. Heck, I'll admit, even I use professional printing services because you know what? At the end of the day, they can do better quality work than I can. Shoot, I'm gonna pay somebody who can do better work than I can. Just being perfectly honest there. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Have a very Merry Christmas or whatever you celebrate. Have a Happy New Year. Stay safe and happy printing from Make It with Calvin.